we are live, but not really.
Welcome back to Beauty is Terror. This is our dark academia / MBTI / pretty much anything we want to talk about podcast.
Mm-hmm. I was actually just having a conversation with my friend the other day, and she's like, isn't it a dark academia podcast? And I'm like, well, I mean, technically, but not really. We kind of just talk about whatever.
Right. Although I do feel like with the changing seasons and, upcoming fall and whatnot, winter time, I get more, I'm getting into the vibe slowly. I'm already feeling it right now.
Yep.
This is my favorite time of year. Well, not the summer, but October through December, January it's definitely my fave.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm already I'm summoning it. I'm manifesting
fall weather.
For sure, yeah.
It is starting to cool off here a bit, I've noticed. We were hitting mid-80s weather, and now I think today high is low 70s, so we're getting there.
Yeah, that's promising. No, over here it's still hot as hell. Hotter than Satan's balls.
Cool.
Yeah, but okay, I'm, just gotta wait it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do.
Mm-hmm. All right, so should we present this evening? Should we present this episode's topic?
Yes, for sure. So this week's episode is actually a true crime episode. This is our first true crime episode.
Hopefully one of many.
Yes. We are looking to do one on a case that hasn't been covered to death. And this case actually took place in my hometown, which is kind of cool. This is the disappearance of Evelyn Hartley in, I believe, October of 1953 from Crosse County, Wisconsin, which is where I'm from.
Which is amazing, because it almost feels, trying to imagine, this time period, because it was, so much has happened since, in terms of technology and the way that we investigate, crimes, murder, but just crimes in general, anymore. It's just so different that it feels like, an entire, it's a different universe, pretty much.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, okay, so would you like to present the case?
Yeah, I will start here. So Evelyn Hartley disappeared, like I said, October 24th, 1953 from La Crosse County, Wisconsin. Her disappearance involved the questioning of more than 3,500 people. I believe what they were doing at the time, which was extremely controversial, is they were actually going to the local high school, actually the high school I went to.
Really?
And they were, they were pulling every single, male student, and they were questioning the male students. And I think they only managed to question, I don't even know how many. They only questioned a small percentage before probably the parents, I'm guessing, put a stop to that.
Right. So the documentary that you sent me, I'm gonna leave the link in the description, but the documentary mentioned that they polygraphed over 300 people before the high school just put a stop to it, because I mean, is this your is this really the route you want to go?
Yeah, that is way too also broad of a pool of people to be questioning. Maybe narrow down your suspect pool before just bringing in all these people for questioning.
Right. They were questioning hold on, I actually got this down. This is just fucking ridiculous. Was it? Hold on. Where is this? Right, so they were polygraphing all high school and college age men.
And see, I knew about the high school, not the college.
I mean, seriously.
Now, this is something about La Crosse as well. It is a college town, a pretty large college town. We have 3 major colleges in La Crosse, and then smaller trade schools. So that is a huge number of people to be questioning.
Yeah, it's just not realistic in any way. I think that, if more than anything, I think that it's just telling to how at loss, and like completely helpless the police was, because they had no other, lead.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
So once you hit that dead end, like what else are you gonna do? You start grasping at straws, pretty much.
I can't help but think that if this case were to happen nowadays with technology, I feel like it would be pretty easily solved. There was plenty of evidence. There was blood stains. There was witnesses. Like, there was a lot of evidence. Yeah. But what had happened, so I can read this here. So she had gone to babysit the daughter of a local professor. Her father called the house. She was supposed to check in with him at 8:30 that evening. She didn't call, so he called the house and received no answer. He drove to the house where she was babysitting. All of the doors to the house were locked, the lights and the radio were on, and a bunch of items from the house were either moved or scattered around the house. The living room furniture had been moved to different places in the house. Her books were scattered everywhere. Her shoes were found. One shoe was upstairs, one was downstairs, and he found her broken glasses. He did not find her. Every single room in the house was locked except for the door to the basement that was in the back of the house. There was a window in the basement that was missing a screen, and the window screen was actually found outside, leaning up against the wall to the house. There was also a stepladder that had been positioned at the bottom of the open window, and there were pry marks found on some of the windows. And there were footprints found in the snow around the house. I believe there was, if I'm correct, there was like snow or something on the ground at the time.
Yeah.
And bloody handprints were found about 100 feet away in a garage in a nearby house.
I think that they also found the same shoe print. They mentioned that it was from a tennis shoe. They found another shoe print inside the house, if I'm not mistaken. But one thing that is interesting to me is that her father mentioned that she had this habit, because this was not the first time that she was babysitting for this family, if I remember correctly, and also not the first time that she babysits, in general. And she had this habit of calling to check in like an hour into, I don't know what to call it, like the babysitting gig, like her shift, right? So so when you think of it, from the moment that the family left and, she started doing what she's paid to do, and the moment that she was supposed to call her dad, that's a very short, narrow window of opportunity. Well, it was less than an hour that she was alone, before this attack happened. And it's just, it's so crazy. But sorry, keep going.
Actually, just a little thing I forgot to mention at the beginning. My grandmother actually did know Evelyn as well. I believe they went to high school together.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah, they did not, I don't think they hung out together, but I think they were in the same group of students that would walk to school together in the morning, is what I believe I remember her saying.
Wow.
Yeah, and then my mom, I believe, attended high school with the young girl that was being babysat that night.
That's crazy.
My hometown is only about 50,000 people, so it's pretty small. So this was huge at the time.
Right, and it really is, the stuff that horror movies are made of. With a young babysitter, like, alone. It's literally the opening scene to Scream, right?
Yep.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. So the police believe that somebody took her through the yard, but did drop her on the ground before, like, dragging her off. There was also a neighbor, I believe, had reportedly seen a car that was driving around the neighborhood. I believe another witness said that they had seen a car with 2 males and a young girl who was, like, slumped in one of the seats of the vehicle as well. let's see, what else?
Some eyewitnesses said that they saw a couple, and like between them, they saw a woman, or a young woman. What was it? Like she was stumbling. That's what they called it.
Yeah, they thought that she was drunk because they were holding her by her arms as they were walking down the street. And then I believe somebody saw a man driving a vehicle with a second man in the back seat with a girl who was slumped with her head on the passenger seat, or one of the back seats. Mm-hmm. Then somebody also had claimed nearby that they had heard a scream, but they just assumed that it was children playing, so they didn't really think too much of it.
The documentary interviews the neighbors, and there were like this old couple. Mm-hmm. The male said that he heard 2 or 3 screams, and then they asked the lady, did it sound playful? And she said, no, it did not sound playful. It sounded like stop or let me go, or something like that. And when I heard this, my blood was fucking boiling, because
why would you not
like, why would you not immediately call 911? What are you doing? It's you yourself just testified that it sounds like someone is in a state of distress. Why would you just go on about your evening as if, it's nothing? It's not normal.
Now, let me also say this as a little aside. I currently live in Chicago, which if I were to hear somebody screaming outside, I probably wouldn't think too much of it, because I also live across the street from a hookah lounge, which gets very rowdy on the weekends. But in a small town like La Crosse, Wisconsin, especially in the 50s, where, not much was happening in La Crosse.
Right.
I would be calling the police for sure.
Like, a loud drama would be, some housewife burning the fucking pie.
Yes.
It's...
I lived on the south side of La Crosse growing up. I lived on a street that was so short and so small and so isolated that one time my mother ordered a pizza, and the pizza delivery driver did not believe our street existed. So La Crosse is pretty quiet. I remember my entire time growing up, there was only one incident on our block where there was a disturbance. My entire childhood, from age, I moved out a little, when I was after school, so from age 1 to 22, one incident.
Right. And this is, in progressive times. Back then people would not even lock their doors and windows. Everyone felt so safe,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I'll be honest, I'm pretty well aware of my environment, and I'm a nosy bitch. So if I hear screams, I am 100% peeking out of the what's it called, eye hole. Yeah. I'm peeking out, I'm eavesdropping, I'm trying to figure out the situation. And yes, if I would rather call the police for nothing than have it be, a real situation and no one intervening on this victim's behalf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Several days after this, some items of clothing were found stained with blood at different locations. There was a jacket that was found with blood stains that matched Evelyn's blood type. Let's see.
So...
over 1,000 community members, including, law enforcement, the National Guard, what is now the University of La Crosse. At the time it was called La Crosse State College. All these people aided in the search. They were checking gas stations. Attendants were checking cars for blood stains. They were opening recent graves to see if anybody had placed her remains in with a recent burial. which is
interesting. This is I don't know what would prompt police to do something like that.
There is a street, I believe it is what is now called Jackson Street in La Crosse, that was under construction at the time of her disappearance, that a lot of people in La Crosse think that she's buried under that street. I don't think that was in any of the articles that I checked, but I have heard that before. That is a commonly held belief that she is possibly buried under that street.
I wonder if they used the dogs, because it's just, I don't know. I tend to believe the dogs.
See, I don't know when using like dogs for crime, like to pick up scents for crimes. I don't know how popular that was in the 50s.
Yeah.
I don't know when that started, but yeah, I mean, you would think. I feel like maybe I had seen somewhere that they did use dogs, but I believe I did, that they used not bomb dogs, crime dogs to try to locate her scent, but they stopped at the end of the block, which if she was picked up by somebody in a car or like put into a car after they had dragged her, that makes sense.
Yeah, the scent trail just goes.
Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure that they did use dogs, but they weren't able to track her. And I'm almost positive that is what I saw. I've been researching this for a couple days now, and all of my notes have like flown out of my brain because there's just so much. There is, actually quite a bit of information about this case, despite it being like 70 years ago that it happened. Ed Gein was actually considered a suspect.
What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, he was already on death row when he was questioned. He wouldn't really have any reason to lie at this point. He did deny that he had any thing to do with it.
Yeah.
And I believe he was cleared of any connections as well. So you think that, at this point, he's already been sentenced. He might as well just admit it if he did have something to do with it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I also read somewhere that she would not be his, typical victim, like the type of victim that he would go for. Mm-hmm. That he had mommy issues, so he preferred them, old and
yeah.
I don't know.
She was only 14 at the time, so I don't think she fit.
Yeah, and also, if I remember correctly, I'm not like super well versed in the Ed Gein situation. I do know that he made furniture and clothes from his victims.
Yes,
but he left, or they found plenty of evidence. So I feel like if any part of her was there, they would have probably found it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I tend to believe that it was just a coincidence that he was in the neighborhood, so to speak, when it happened. How do you feel about, because people theorize that it's too, I mean, we don't know it for sure, obviously, but people tend to agree with the two men theory. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Do you think that it was possible that it was just one person?
Possibly. I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like that seemed to be, I believe more than one person had indicated that they had saw her with two people. So that leads me to believe that it possibly was two people. But I feel like, I mean, I don't know. My thing is the because I believe, let me see this here. Yeah, the fact that all of the doors were locked in the house is kind of strange. Like all of the inside doors to the house were locked. Yeah, every room in the house was locked. So that, I don't know, that seems strange.
If I'm thinking like the perpetrator, I feel like, I mean, nothing was missing except for her, right?
Yes, nothing else was missing.
So people say that, this is a theory that I disagree with, but people are saying, oh, maybe it was just a robbery gone wrong. But
well, no.
Exactly. But I feel like it was a two-man's job, and she was the target. And I think that it's safe to assume that the house was being watched.
Oh,
and right. And so they were, hiding somewhere, waiting for the family to leave, knowing that there was just a teenager in the house with either kids or a baby. I don't know, like, how much they knew about the familial situation, but she was the target always.
Yeah.
So I guess one of them was waiting outside, the other would go in, and he was like, okay, you're gonna get her, and then we will take her in and leave.
Yeah.
And the door closing thing, the locking the door, maybe they didn't know who else would be in the house, so it was like an attempt to isolate possibly other people if they were present. So so they are unable to contact authorities, are unable to fight back.
That is just an odd thing, though, for every single door in the house to be locked. But also,
it is, but it almost feels to me like an insurance. Like I'm going in. I don't know. I feel like the house is empty. Like I have maybe. Because they were leaving, but at the same time, like, they didn't want to have any surprises. Like, oh, what if her boyfriend was there? Like in the next room, her boyfriend was in the bathroom. Like, no one knew about it.
Yeah, but if they were casing the house, then they would more than likely know that she was the only one in the house.
I don't know. It's weird, but
it's very weird.
But I do feel like it was a crime of opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, considering how short of a time it was between when the homeowners left.
Yeah.
When she was supposed to call her dad and didn't. Very short window of opportunity.
Not even an hour.
No. So they must have waited as soon as the family left. They were getting in that house. And she did put up a fight, obviously, with all the, the living room furniture was scattered around, her books were scattered around, her shoes were in, one was upstairs, one was downstairs.
Yeah.
So I feel like, a 2-man job would make sense if you're going to be, she was only 14, but she clearly put up a good fight, so.
Yeah, and I can almost, like, see them in my mind's eye, sitting in the car or, like, lurking somewhere in the bushes, and they see the family leave, and they know that what was it, game night or something like that? So they know that, that it's pretty dead because everyone's preoccupied with this town activity. Yeah. Right, so they are waiting. It's kind of like the burglars in Home Alone. They know that the street is empty because everyone's on vacation.
Yeah.
And sadly, in these situations, people tend to have their guards, down. Like when they're on vacation, when they're having a good time, like they're not as aware, like as vigilant to outside threats.
Yeah. So her kidnapping actually led to one of the biggest searches in Wisconsin state history.
Yeah.
There was a reward for her, like a reward fund put together, which reached $6,600, which equivalent today would be about $75,000. So the two most interesting things that had come out of this, there was a potential lead. In 2004, there was a man named Mel Williams. He came forward. He had been filming a band playing at a bar, I believe, in 1969. While he was recording, he did catch on the recording a conversation between two men who were having a discussion. One of the men, a man named Clyde Peterson, had implicated himself and another man in the disappearance. And he had claimed Evelyn was murdered and she was buried in Lafarge, Wisconsin. Both, as of the time that Mel Williams came forward with this recording, both of those men are deceased. That was one of the latest, I believe, leads on the case. Another thing from that video that I had sent you was a couple years later, about 20 years later after that, the body of an unidentified woman was found in a roadside grave, actually near the town of Viroqua. That was in 1984. She was possibly, I don't know what ever became of this. I don't think that they really ever got any more leads on this case, but she was possible. People were thinking that it was possible that she was Evelyn Hartley. The woman was believed to be in her either late 50s or her 60s. At the time of finding this woman's body, Evelyn would have been about 51 years old. Her hands were cut off and her face was beaten, but an artist did make a reconstruction of this woman's face. The artist's reconstruction kind of bears some, resemblance to Evelyn, but if you look at a picture of Evelyn's mother, there's like a striking resemblance between the two, which is really, really weird.
Which I'm just asking myself if this, if this is possibly Evelyn, then why, instead of having a sketch drawn, take the fucking DNA, and compare it? Like, familial DNA was definitely a thing by then, no? 84, I think.
Yeah. I don't know when. I know that both of Evelyn's parents moved, I believe, to Portland.
Oregon.
I don't actually know how advanced DNA testing was at this point. I'm sure DNA testing in 1984 was a thing. I just don't know how advanced it was at this time.
Yeah, we should also mention that this was in the documentary, I believe. Someone had sent them, like the family, after a while, a couple of notes saying that it was all staged and that Evelyn wanted to get away, and she didn't think that it would create, such a mess, or such an uproar in the community, and she's kind of already regretting it, but she's fine. And that
I highly doubt that.
but that's what they did, and it's just, it makes me question, because obviously, these cases, the more waves they make, the more like lunatics and just unhinged people that they attract. And you have false confessions, you have people claiming to have seen stuff that they did not see. When shit like that happens, even normal people like you and me, we start seeing zebras where there aren't, it's just horses, and we're seeing zebras because it awakens something in us. Like, there's no denying it. But in that same documentary,
actually, there is a little section where they mention, because this documentary is almost like a Crime Stoppers-esque kind of thing. Where they have like a phone number you can call for tips, and I believe they mention in this documentary that they had a woman call demanding to speak with Evelyn's parents. And when they refused, she like got really upset, and like I don't remember exactly what happened, but like this woman sounded absolutely insane. So it attracts like flies to a big pile of shit, essentially. But someone mentioned, I think this was also in the documentary, I don't remember, but someone said that there was a chance for her parents to find out what happened to her, or like there was some kind of lead that they didn't want to pursue anymore. And it's just, what a horrible thing to say. And they were also indicating that Evelyn's parents knew who was behind this, but they didn't want the truth to come out, essentially. And it's just, but I do feel like, with these small towns, this is a bit of a conspiracy, but I feel like these small towns, like, people know, like, everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows everyone's business, and so
So if this was a local person, like an inside job, whatever, I feel like there's just no way that they were oblivious.
Yeah. I mean, I could believe that to a degree. When I think of cases like that where there's some kind of in-family cover-up, I think of the case of JonBenet Ramsey.
Yeah.
Where if you look at all of the evidence, a lot of it points to either her father or her brother being involved, and
I agree.
the parents trying to cover it up. So, I mean, I guess you can't really rule that out, that it could have been, you know, a relative or a family friend, and they're trying to cover it up. But honestly, it doesn't feel like it's likely.
I don't
it
think
feels
it,
like
I don't
somebody
think it
was.
Yeah, I don't think it was family, but I do feel
it could have been family friends. It very well could have been somebody who knew Evelyn personally.
I mean, it could be, but I don't think that it's that it's likely. I feel like this is a crime of opportunity, and it definitely has like a sexual element to it, like
yeah.
a serial.
I mean, I feel like there was. I don't know if I'd say crime of opportunity, because it does seem like there was some forethought. I mean, clearly they had to have known. I don't think that they just went into that house hoping that there would be an unattended 14-year-old in there. I think there was some
I
casing.
think that, I think that the house was definitely watched, and that they knew she would be in there, but it was. I don't think that it was something. I mean, it is possible that they followed her, like learned her pattern, whatever, and they knew that she was babysitting.
Yeah.
But in my mind's eye, it's more like they were sitting in the car, and maybe they followed her, you know, when she was walking down the street or whatever. They saw this teenager, and they were like, okay, like she gets inside the house, let's see what happens. And then they see the entire family leave, and she just, you know, and she doesn't, like, she stays in the house, and boom, like that's enough for like someone that wants to kidnap her, to get her into human trafficking, you know, all that good stuff. That's enough for them. Like, this is, and that would be what, 30 minutes top, like 40 minutes of watching the house.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's enough, you know, it's enough. Say that a woman is walking down the street late at night. It's, you know, that's an easy target already. The street is dead. You have one woman walking on her own. You know, you have motive, you have opportunity. That's it.
Also, in regard to the two men being involved, it is possible that only one of the men was actually inside the house, especially if they only found one set of footprints or like one shoe mark in the house.
Yeah, that's
and the
what
other
I'm
stayed
thinking.
outside and watched and like helped pull her out of the house, like through that basement window.
That's what I'm thinking. And they also mentioned a nosebleed, so I can almost like see how, you know, either she put up a fight and then he just, you know, decked her and she started bleeding, or maybe she started bleeding out of stress, because I believe that there's a connection between nosebleeds and you know, stress situations, stressful situations. And so I can definitely see him maybe like punching her to subdue her, and then he was like, you know, get out of the house.
They also said there was a bloody handprint on the side of a house that was nearby, about 100 feet away from the house where she was taken. Which is also kind of interesting. If they were dragging her,
she literally left a trail of blood. There was blood on a windowsill, I believe, of like a neighboring house, and then on a garage door of another. You know, so like you could really see that there was a trail, and then the trail.
Now, did you see anything about? Did they only find like men's shoe footprints, or did they find any of her footprints in the area? Because I don't believe they ever said they found any of her footprints, because I believe she was dragged, so
I'm not sure, but this is also interesting, like the fact that both her shoes, you know, were left behind. It almost feels intentional.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, one shoe was like on the upstairs floor of the house, and one was on the low. So it could have been, if she was running to escape from one of them, that she could have, you know, one of her shoes could have like fallen off, and then the other came off like while she was putting up a fight or something like that.
But they did. I think that I saw the shoes, and they're like, you know, high Converse. It's not like a flip flop that, you know, you can lose it easily. It's weird.
Interesting. I would have assumed they were like, you know, like those 50s like kind of slip on shoes, like the loafers. I would have assumed they would have been something like that.
if it was loafers or, flip-flops, then yeah, I get it. You run, you stumble, you lose a shoe. You can lose both shoes. But if it's, high Converse that go above the ankle and you lace them up, it's weird.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Yeah, I don't know. But, okay, so what do you think happened to her? Because nothing, do we agree that the purpose of it was her? Because nothing was missing in the house. This doesn't feel like a robbery.
No, I highly doubt it was a robbery. They also, the baby that she was watching was totally unharmed. I believe she was asleep the entire time. So I think Evelyn herself was definitely the target.
Yeah, she was a target. Nothing was missing. I also don't think that they intended to rob, because people say, oh, it's a robbery that went wrong, and like I understand how sometimes someone walks into a house to rob it and they end up killing the person that they didn't anticipate would be in the house, but I don't think it's that type of situation at all.
No, especially because if that had been the case, they probably would have just left her there instead of bringing her. I mean, unless they were gonna bury her themselves, but that just, I don't know, it just seems extremely unlikely.
Yeah, if their purpose was to rob the house, there are so many other ways that they could have handled her.
Oh, absolutely.
That would not involve taking her.
Yeah.
But I tend to believe that she was kidnapped for, sexual purposes.
Probably. Well, I also believe that.
Do you think that it is likely that she was that woman that she got to live until her 50s or 60s and then got murdered?
Honestly, no. I don't think so. My guess is they probably... I do kind of think that there was... I mean, the fact that... I don't know. It's hard to say. The fact that conversation was recorded in a bar is kind of... Because it was a conversation. They didn't know, obviously, it was being recorded. It was just like a very hush-hush conversation in a bar that they were having. Very weird conversation to be having in public, like if you're going to admit to a crime like that. But
that is not the weird part. The weird part to me is that when did he take that recording? When was it?
1980. Oh, no, that was
80s.
No, the woman's body was found in the 80s. I believe that 1969 is when that conversation was recorded. Okay, so it was recorded at the end of the 60s, and then he only brought it forward early 2000s? Yeah, 2004.
So, that's weird. Yeah, I mean, unless like, it was, the recording was, lying somewhere in on a dusty shelf, and then he pulled it out, and he listened to it for some reason. And then also I read online people were kind of noting how back then people only recorded important things. Recording wasn't as common or as easy as us, for example, nowadays, just unlocking our phone, hitting one button, and voila. No, back in the day, people, it was a big deal. Yeah, and I think I did see somebody on Reddit talking about this, saying that I believe recording stuff like this was illegal at the time. So him recording this at all was something that probably would have been kept on the down low. So the fact that if he had recorded it and then maybe just stashed it away for many, many years, and then, like you said, come back a long time later and listen to it, and then he just happens to realize he caught this conversation. And I guess people discussing crimes they've committed while drunk is also probably not the most unbelievable thing either. It's definitely a thing, and especially, with psychopaths and sociopaths, they are, once they don't get caught, they get cocky, and it's poetic justice, really, because their narcissism makes them feel very safe and untouchable, and that's what eventually gets them to make mistakes that end up, getting them, they get caught because of their mistakes and because they're so comfortable, and especially, think about it, so much time has passed and they're feeling, safe. Yeah, because I believe it was about 17 years after she had gone missing that this conversation was recorded. So that is also very true. And the case definitely went cold, and police was completely at a loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I mean, they started grasping at straws as soon as they started polygraphing,
Mm-hmm.
People left and right. It's pretty evident.
They had no idea what they were doing.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, no, I don't believe that they kept her alive. I think that, unless it was for, like, trafficking purposes, but, no, I believe what they probably did was they probably kidnapped her, they probably assaulted her, and then they murdered and buried her somewhere.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I also feel like if they kept her, I mean, maybe not, but I tend to believe, want to believe that if they kept her alive for years and years later, then she would have eventually found some opportunity to either run away or contact someone, or send some sign of life to the outside world.
Yeah, keeping her alive, especially because Lafarge is not really that it's not that far from La Crosse, which is where they had claimed that he'd been buried, but it's far enough away that maybe the police wouldn't have suspected that's where they would have taken her. Viroqua is a lot closer to La Crosse. The fact that they found her there, it also is very strange that they would have kept her alive until she was 51 and then decide to just murder her and dump her in a ditch is also...
It's just random.
Very unlikely. Yeah, exactly.
It's random, and also, the more that you keep someone like that around, even if you're hiding them in a basement in in the middle of nowhere, it's just a huge risk. Why would you? And I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't feel like it aligns with the whole thing.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but I don't think that's what happened. I think she was probably murdered right away after she was kidnapped.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Any closing words?
Not really. This is, it's still a cold case. It was covered on a show called The Vanished in 2016.
Yeah, I watched that one.
And then Case Files podcast did an episode about her as well in 2002.
But here's a personal tip. Always close your basement windows, people.
And yes, yeah. Please.
Basements and attics are just not, they are Achilles' heel. So just treat them like one, please.
Yeah, I did go down a rabbit hole somewhat recently about things caught on Ring cameras, and people will just, they'll just straight up go up to your door and just test the knob, see if it's unlocked, just bust the door in. That happens a lot. So just being vigilant, especially if you're alone.
It's really creepy. It really is. It's so creepy.
Even if you think something is, strange, you hear something weird or whatever. I know in the U.S. we have non-emergency lines. I would just, if you think that, somebody's possibly breaking in, even if you suspect it, just call. Not necessarily 911, but just even, the non-emergency line. Just so, it's documented.
Yeah. I used to follow this ASM artist, and she was the first ASM artist that would mix ASMR with true crime, and it was very controversial at first. And she mentioned that whenever she goes out, she was also in her early 20s when she was making these videos, and she was living her best life, party girl period, whatever. And she mentioned that every time she would go out with friends, she would share her location with at least one friend and
absolutely.
And her parents.
Yeah.
And that is just so important. Obviously in Evelyn's case, it was way back when. Technology was not the same. You didn't have a cell phone, you didn't have an emergency button, whatever. The timeline building was a lot harder to achieve, but nowadays, you have all these CCTV footage. This is why serial killers cannot get away with it anymore.
Yeah. Also, I did look it up. Non-emergency lines are for things like gas leaks. So if you think somebody's breaking into your house, just straight up call the police.
Exactly.
But yeah, even on apps like Snapchat, you can turn on your location sharing. If you have friends that use Snapchat and you're going somewhere, they can even monitor you that way. There is that one app, I forgot what it's called, where you can...
trace your phone?
Yeah, well, there's like the one where you, if you're like walking somewhere unsafe, you have like a button you can hold down, and if your finger goes off the button, it waits a certain number of like a minute or something, and then it will automatically like alert the authorities. That's amazing.
I did not know about that. Mm-hmm. I do know that there are apps like Where's My Phone, and you can use that to, track the person, assuming that they're in danger.
Yeah. I believe it's called... There's a couple different apps that actually do that. I think that, there's quite a few you can choose from. I think actually iPhones do have something possibly as well that you can do that. I could be wrong, but there are plenty of ways to do that. Yeah, actually, iPhone does have it. It is a button where I think you have to hold it down, and then when you release it, it will call emergency services. So if you live in an unsafe area, that's always a really good option too, especially if you have to walk alone or if you're walking at night.
Yeah, and you just got to stay vigilant and not... I don't know. I feel like, some people are just... They don't want to see the bad thing coming. Yeah. Or, like, they're thinking, I can't live my life in fear. I, like, always worry and look over my shoulder. But, the truth of the matter is there's some pretty sick people out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So, that is pretty much it. And we hope you enjoyed this case. And we would love to hear your theories, right? I mean, if you think, whatever you think.
And we will link that documentary in the show notes as well. It is very old. I was saying there are some very heavy Wisconsin accents in this. So if you can hear my Wisconsin accent, think of that like 10 times worse.
All right.
Cool.
So, should we move to Rex? Do you have any?
Yeah,
Great.
I have one. Yeah.
Great.
I can't remember if I've actually discussed this one because it's something that I kind of have been reading on and off frequently, but I don't think I have mentioned it before. I've been into, it's a series, they're technically like I think it's like they get released every 6 months. It's a little journal. The Analog Sea. Have you ever heard of that?
The Analog Sea? Nope.
So it's a completely offline journal. They do have like a very brief website that talks about where you can find, like, I think it's North America and somewhere else has these journals, but it's like a collection. Like I said, I think they're released twice a year. Basically like a magazine in like a little book form. And it's all about just disconnecting from technology. And it's really nice. It's got poems, essays, interviews, just about, the one I read was actually from a filmmaker who was talking about how he had made a film recently, and I believe it's like, I haven't looked at this in a while, but just kind of like him discussing how he disconnects, which I feel like a lot of people can use that nowadays because we're constantly on our phones.
I agree. And, I'm so proud of myself because, so I started to be more aware of my screen time or, like, my phone use and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And you do have that option to see your screen time, like, the most used apps and statistics, in a day or, like, in a week.
Yeah.
I think maybe even in a month, but I checked, so I started to check it more frequently in recent months, but a couple of weeks ago I was up to, I would say, 3 hours and a half per day, which is a lot. And I feel like it also depends on the person that you are, because we all know that perceivers don't give a like they don't have they don't have that guilty conscience, you know. They can just spend hours doing fuck all. But judgers cannot allow themselves to, you know, to do this essentially. So when I saw that I'm spending 3.5 hours on my phone per day, it was like a slap, you know, a slap in the face of my wannabe productive me. Yeah. So I decided that I have to cut down on screen time. And, you know, thankfully, I think I'm around less than 2 hours. I think I'm like 1 hour and a half now, something like that. And it feels so much better just seeing the numbers, you know, the numbers. And I do feel like, I mean, it's an addiction, you know. Yeah. It definitely is. So it takes a while to disconnect, to change that bad habit. But once you do, and first of all, you make room for other things that are more long-term rewarding, because when you're scrolling, you get that instant gratification almost, but it doesn't last. Yeah. And then when you walk away from the computer, you're like, what have I done with all this time?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about, especially like Instagram and scrolling Instagram reels, where, you know, you get that dopamine hit of just scrolling, and then you realize you've been sitting on your phone for 30 minutes just looking at garbage.
Yeah, and that's like it's like crack. And that's the downer part. That you're thinking to yourself, okay, so I was entertained for 5 seconds, but those 5 seconds, you know, I gave it another 5 seconds, and then another 5 seconds, and then it turned into an hours long, you know, waste of time. And then when you step away from the situation, you no longer feel that great about it. But it's just a vicious circle. Yeah. But when I'm looking back, saving all that time, investing it into reading or writing or doing whatever else, it's the sense of, you know, being rewarded is so much. It's a longer distant journey, I guess I would call it, but it's so worth, you know, the while. It's so worth the while.
You can only, I believe, get these journals at bookstores. So your local bookstore, if you are in the U.S., might carry them. It's called the Analog Sea Review. And I did look in my copy. The director I was talking about the interview, his name is Patrick Shen, and he has a film called In Pursuit of Silence, which is talking about, or it's like a film that kind of wants the viewer to kind of just experience silence and disconnecting and all that. So after reading that interview, I kind of want to watch it. I'm not sure if it's something you can find online, but it sounds very interesting.
It really does.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah. I would highly recommend, if you can find this book, I would recommend it. It's just, they're not very big, but it's just a lot of stuff, especially if you like poetry, because there's a lot of
I do like
little
poetry.
Poems in there and stuff too, which is cool.
But I feel like I have to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this is like something you could really get into in the fall, because it's just kind of like recharging in the fall time when you're stuck inside, when it starts to get, the weather's starting to get cold, and in the winter as well.
And you want to become more still, because I always think about summers like, you know, you're hyperactive. You're hibernating. Yeah, summer is like you're hyperactive. You just want to go outside and. But fall and winter, you slow it down.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so for me personally, this week I finished George Orwell's 1984. Okay. You know, it's a must for any reader, really. It's a must on every list. You know, top 10, top 100, most influential, blah blah blah. It's always up there. And I can see why. It's one of those, you know, gave me an existential crisis reads, which I'm glad. I'm definitely in that period. I'm also going. Yeah,
you're in your existential crisis era.
The 100th one or so. It's definitely not the first, not the second, not even the 10th. But yeah, I don't know. I do have more existential crisis reads on my list. One of them is Stoner by I forgot his name. Stoner, John Williams. And then also My Year of Rest and Relaxation.
Ooh, I read that book.
Yeah, it was huge on Book Talk.
Yeah, I actually didn't really enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm reading the author's other book, which is like a fantasy horror novel, and I'm liking this one a lot right now. But
wow.
Yeah. We can maybe, if we have an episode about our next book related episode, maybe I'll talk about My Year of Rest and Relaxation and why I didn't really enjoy it. I actually just had this conversation with a friend the other day too, which is kind of funny. But yeah,
maybe I can read it and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. You might like it. I just didn't, and I'm not gonna get into it right now. But
because it's up there. I feel like books like this one, like Stoner, like what else am I thinking about? The Virgin Suicides. And The Bell Jar. The Bell Jar is also, it's huge in, it just makes you question everything. And I don't know, Plath is just in general, like, she gives me all the feels. Yeah. So really, when I'm really feeling it, hard, it's that sort of thing. So I'm definitely gonna look more into these really serious, heavy pieces.
Yeah.
So 1984, I highly recommend it. It's so scary. It's a cautionary tale. And humanity, like, reading it nowadays, and I think this is what makes for a great transgressive piece. Because this is what I'm into, like, right now. The classics always, but transgressive fiction, there's something so raw and so provocative and so real about it because it's, in the margins. So what makes it a great transgressive piece is that it was written at a certain point where you would start to see, all these things that are sick about our society, but they were just starting to bloom. But right now they are, they're completely overgrown. You can see it everywhere, like Big Brother, watching you. The hate between the sexes at an all-time, high. So, all these different topics, like, I can't even list them all right now, but it's just a mess. And to think that we've reached that point after he raised so many flags, and not just him, it makes him for a great artist because, his criticism was just on point. He really was a prophet of his time. And, what makes it a great, existential piece or like transgressive piece is that it becomes more and more relevant with each passing day.
Absolutely.
Same for Fight Club. Like, I always think about Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. It becomes more and more relevant with each passing day. It's just scary as hell. So I read that. I loved it. I thought it was great. It's also like one of those books that kind of stay with you. You know what I mean? Like, it will take me a while to shake this, off.
Yeah.
I did watch a horror movie that I liked recently. It's called Evil Dead Rise.
I have a friend that's a very big fan of the Evil Dead series.
So apparently it is a series. I didn't know that. I watched the remake from 2023. That is the only one that I've ever seen. I probably check out the others, but I didn't know, like, I went into it completely blind because I overheard this radio show. Someone was giving a recommendation, so I decided to just check it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I quite enjoyed it. I'm usually very, a very harsh critic of horror movies because it's my favorite genre, and I feel like they're just done very poorly nowadays.
Yeah.
but it was nice. I always like, you know, demon stuff. Hello, demons, this is your girl. And it was nice. Like, if you're into horror, give it a shot. And my last rec that I want to sob about is that I finished Vikings Valhalla.
I really want to watch that.
You should first watch Vikings and then, you know, go to the spin-off, move on to the spin-off.
Okay.
Because Vikings, you know, was the original masterpiece, and nothing will ever compare to that. It's definitely up there in my, you know, like,
now,
top.
Vikings didn't finish, correct? It was canceled? Or did it finish? The original series?
I don't remember, but I think that they gave it, like, they wrapped it up. Yeah. It was rather patched up, but they gave it a somewhat proper ending. But I do feel like, I don't want to spoiler, but there's a certain point in the series that something major happens. If you're familiar with the story of, you know, because the main character Ragnar, it's, you know, the whole idea is that it revolves around his journey into a new world, and then his sons, and like how they kind of, I don't know what to call it, like his inheritance to them, or like his legacy to his sons. So something major happens, and I feel like with a lot of TV, you know, shows, like for example with House, you have 3 seasons that they kind of followed a certain pattern, but then they switch the teams. Like, the original team goes away, and then they switch the teams. So the show does take a strong turn at one point, and then I feel like you have very specific characters or like things that hold your interest as a viewer. But it's still, you know, it's not super bad, like, say for example the ending of Game of Thrones. No. It's not that bad.
Okay. So that's good.
Yeah, but Vikings is hands down one of the best shows that I've ever seen. Okay. And I watched Vikings Valhalla. You know, I didn't expect to like it as much. I mean, I knew it was never going to be as good as Vikings, the original. But you fall in love with, you know, the universe and like the characters, the idea, the landscape is stunning, like, and it's pure escapism, because, you know, you just step into a different world. I mean, Vikings, it's just they're fascinating. Yeah. So yeah, I finished it. I'm really, really sad, and I'm definitely missing it. And I was told to watch Black Sails next. Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, I actually have not heard of that.
So it's not about Vikings, it's about pirates.
Pirates?
But, yeah, pirates. But apparently it's kind of has similar vibes. Okay. And I'm also going to check out The Last Kingdom, also on Netflix, also Vikings, which apparently is very good and very underrated.
Okay.
And there's eye candy there, and I'm not even going to pretend like I'm not watching it.
You know what? That's fair.
I mean, yeah. My eyes deserve to be blessed.
Right? Cool. All right.
So yeah, that is it. And thank you for listening to tonight's episode, today, whenever you're listening to this. Because time zones are a bitch.
Yes, I agree.
So, yeah, we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.